I never liked babysitting, but it was easy money. Mr. and Mrs. Callahan were nice enough, and their daughter Lily was an easy kid. She was 6, quiet, and mostly kept to herself. No tantrums, no running around, just a small, polite child with big eyes that always seemed to be watching something over my shoulder. Their house was in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people watered their lawns at the same time every morning and waved to each other but never really talked. It wasn't an old house, nothing eerie about it. Just a typical suburban home with a big backyard and a basement I had never been in. That night when I arrived, Mrs. Callahan gave me the usual instructions. Lily needs to be in bed by 9. We'll be back by midnight. Her husband nodded. We had some work done on the basement recently, so we keep the storage room locked. You don't need to go down there for anything. The first couple of hours were fine. Lily sat on the couch, her tiny legs curled under her as she watched a cartoon. I made her a grilled cheese sandwich and she ate in silence. Then, out of nowhere, she asked, "Do you hear the noises too?" I turned from my phone. "What noises?" She pointed toward the hallway. "From the closet downstairs." I frowned. "You mean the basement?" She nodded but didn't say anything else. Just went back to watching TV like she hadn't just said the creepiest thing imaginable. I laughed it off, but after I put her to bed, I started noticing it. A soft scraping sound. It wasn't constant, just every now and then. At first, I told myself it was the house settling, old pipes maybe. But it didn't sound like that. It was too deliberate. A slow, dragging noise like something being moved across concrete. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, staring down into the darkness. The storage room door was at the bottom, closed, locked, just like the Callahan said. I told myself to ignore it, but then I saw the lock. It wasn't new like I expected. It was scratched up. The metal bent like someone had tried to force it open. That's when I felt it. A shift in the air, like I wasn't alone. I backed away and shut the basement door. The night gets worse. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was imagining things. But then around 11 p.m. I heard it again, louder this time. A thud from below. Then another. I grabbed my phone and tiptoed to the top of the basement stairs. The air felt colder, heavier. My fingers hovered over the screen, ready to call 911, but what would I even say? That I heard noises? That a lock looked tampered with? I took a breath and slowly turned the handle. The door creaked. I stepped down. 1, 2, 3 steps. And then I saw it. The storage room door was open, just an inch. Wide, enough to see the complete darkness inside. I bolted upstairs and locked the basement door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I texted Mrs. Callahan. Me. "Hey, I think someone might be in the basement. Should I call the cops?" No response. A minute passed, then 2, and then creak. A door upstairs. My heart nearly stopped. Lily's room. I forced my legs to move, sprinting up the stairs. Her door was open, and she was sitting up in bed, not scared, just staring past me into the hallway. I turned around slowly. The hallway was empty. I swallowed hard. "Did you get up just now?" She shook her head. "Did you hear something?" She blinked. Then in a small voice she whispered, "He doesn't like when people go near his door." I felt something crawl up my spine. I grabbed her, not caring if I scared her. "We're leaving." She didn't fight me, just let me carry her down the stairs. I moved as fast as I could toward the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock, then rushed footsteps behind us. I didn't look. I didn't think. I yanked the door open and ran. The police arrived within minutes. I stood outside, clutching Lily as they searched the house. When they finally came out, one of the officers looked at me, his face pale. "You need to see this." Inside, they led me to the basement. The storage room door was wide open now. Inside, there was a hole in the wall, small but big enough for someone to squeeze through. Beyond it was a hidden crawl space. There was a pile of blankets, empty food wrappers, and a row of Lily's missing toys. The officer swallowed hard. Whoever it was, they were living here for a while. My stomach turned. They never found him. The crawl space led to the walls of the house, an old access tunnel from before the renovations. The police searched, but the space was big enough for someone to hide in the dark corners. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, just a small scratched-up space where someone had been watching us the whole night. The Callahans moved out a month later. I never babysat again, and I never stopped, wondering where did he go. I never thought house-sitting could be dangerous. My best friend Jessica lived in a secluded home deep in rural Oregon, surrounded by thick forests and long, winding roads. When she asked me to stay for the weekend and watch her 8-year-old son Oliver while she traveled for work, I didn't hesitate. It sounded peaceful. When I pulled up to the house on Friday evening, Jessica greeted me warmly, giving me a quick tour and instructions for Oliver. "He's quiet and won't give you trouble," she smiled. Within minutes, her car disappeared down the driveway, leaving me alone with Oliver in a house surrounded by miles of empty woods. We had pizza for dinner, and afterward settled onto the couch to watch Oliver's favorite movie. It was comfortable and normal, exactly as I expected, until Oliver suddenly whispered, "Hannah, who's standing out there?" My skin prickled. I turned slowly, eyes narrowing at the large window beside us. Beyond the glass stood a man. He was tall, lean, and motionless. He wasn't knocking, wasn't waving. He just stared, his figure partially hidden by shadows cast by the fading daylight. Heart racing, I quickly rose from the couch, walking cautiously toward the window. The moment our eyes met, he stepped backward, disappearing quickly toward the trees. My stomach twisted uncomfortably. Who was that, and why had he been standing there silently? "It's probably just someone lost," I said softly to Oliver, forcing a reassuring smile. But something felt off. I moved quickly through the house, checking every door and window, locking them carefully. The isolation suddenly felt oppressive instead of peaceful. Later that night, after putting Oliver to bed, I stayed downstairs, sitting nervously by the television. Every creak of the house made me jump. Soon I heard it clearly, a gentle crunch of gravel, the unmistakable sound of footsteps circling the house. I muted the TV, heart pounding painfully in my chest. The steps grew louder, closer. Then there was silence. My breath froze. Seconds dragged by, heavy and still. Just when I thought I'd imagined everything, there was a slow, deliberate scratching at the back door. I stood, holding my breath, listening intently. The scratching stopped. Silence. Then footsteps. Faster now, closer. Panicked, I hurried to the back door and flicked on the outside light, peering nervously through the glass. Nothing, just darkness and trees. My pulse hammered in my ears. Just animals. I whispered unconvincingly. I retreated back to the couch, jumping at every creak. But nothing else happened that night. Eventually, exhaustion overcame fear, and I drifted into uneasy sleep. The next morning, sunlight filled the house, easing some of my anxiety. Oliver seemed fine, smiling over his cereal. Maybe I'd overreacted. But as we finished breakfast, Oliver innocently remarked, "Hannah, did you see the man outside last night? He walked around for a long time." My blood went cold. You saw him?" Oliver nodded casually. I woke up. He was walking around the windows, looking inside. Suddenly, the events of the night became horrifyingly real. Without alarming Oliver, I stepped outside, checking around the house. Fresh scratches marked the window frames and doors. Someone had clearly been trying to get in. Deep footprints were pressed into the gravel beneath the windows. This was no animal. My pulse quickened. Who was he, and what did he want? Returning inside, I tried calling Jessica, but it went straight to voicemail. Anxiety twisted in my stomach all day, making it impossible to relax. I kept checking the locks compulsively, dreading nightfall. As evening approached, darkness swallowed the trees around the house. After dinner, I put Oliver upstairs in his room, making sure every door and window was locked tightly. My chest felt heavy with dread. Every minute stretched painfully slow, my nerves frayed and hypersensitive. Then, just after sunset, it began again. Soft tapping on windows downstairs echoed through the silence. My heart lurched. As I stood frozen in the hallway, there was suddenly an aggressive knock at the front door, loud enough to shake it. Oliver called from upstairs. "Hannah, who's knocking?" "Stay in your room," I shouted, voice trembling. I ran, downstairs peeking carefully through the curtains. The man stood boldly on the porch, staring straight at the door, unmoving. Without warning, he lifted his hand, slowly tracing his fingers down the glass, leaving smudged trails. Then he walked calmly around the house again. The scraping and tapping grew louder, circling us relentlessly. He began pulling roughly at windows and doors, clearly determined to enter. Panic surged. I raced upstairs, scooping Oliver from his bed. "We have to go," I whispered urgently, grabbing his jacket. He didn't ask questions, sensing my terror. We hurried into Jessica's bedroom, which had a connecting door leading directly to the attached garage. My hands shook violently as I grabbed the keys from her dresser. Behind us, the noises intensified. Sharp scratching, heavy bangs echoing, downstairs. The intruder was growing desperate. Oliver clung tightly to me as I led him quickly into the garage. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. We climbed into Jessica's car, locking doors as we went. Trembling, I started the engine, desperately pressing the garage remote. The door rose painfully slow, inch by terrifying inch. In the rearview mirror, I caught movement, a shadow quickly approaching behind us. "Come on," I breathed, heart hammering. Finally, the door lifted enough to allow escape. I slammed my foot down, tires squealing as we surged into the driveway. As we sped away, I glimpsed the dark figure sprinting into the trees, vanishing into the night. We drove in tense silence to a motel miles away. My fingers shook as I dialed 911, explaining everything. Officers quickly searched the property, finding undeniable evidence of attempted intrusion. Damaged locks, scratched windows, footprints everywhere. But the man himself had vanished without a trace. Jessica returned the next morning, horrified. She hugged Oliver, crying tears of relief and apology. The police promised increased patrols, but unease lingered heavily in the air. For weeks afterward, I couldn't sleep, haunted by the man's face at the window. The police updated us a month later. They'd finally caught him after similar incidents in nearby towns, but the news wasn't comforting. He wasn't stealing, the officer explained solemnly. Every time he broke in quietly, moved through rooms silently, and watched people sleep. Nothing was ever taken. My stomach turned. What did he want? We don't know. He never said a word. Months passed, but the thought still chills me to my bones. That man wasn't after money or valuables. He wanted something darker, something private. I'll never know what his true intentions were, but that unanswered question still haunts me each night, lingering in the shadows outside my own locked windows. To this day, every time night falls and silence settles around me, I wonder, is someone out there just beyond the glass, watching and waiting patiently, unnoticed until it's far too late? I was 14 when my mom started working late on Saturdays, leaving me with a babysitter I didn't want. I wasn't a little kid anymore. I didn't need someone watching me. But no matter how much I argued, she insisted. That's how Ethan came into my life. He was 22, the son of one of Mom's co-workers, and he was weird. He wasn't mean, but he was awkward, like he didn't know how to talk to people my age. Around my mom, he was super friendly, almost too nice. But as soon as she left, he'd barely say a word to me. That night was different. Mom left at 6 like always. Ethan arrived a little late, apologizing to her with an overly sweet smile. Once she was gone, he slumped onto the couch, scrolling through his phone. I went to my room and played games, trying to ignore him. An hour passed. Then I heard something strange, muffled talking. I crept to my door and peeked down the hall. Ethan was in the kitchen, his back to me, whispering urgently into his phone. I didn't hear everything, just fragments. Not here. No, just a kid. All right, but quick. A weird chill ran down my spine. I stepped back into my room, trying to brush it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just a friend. But something about the way he spoke made my skin crawl. 15 minutes later, Ethan knocked on my door. Hey, someone's stopping by real quick. Just stay in your room, okay? That chill returned. Who? I asked. Just a friend. His voice was too casual, too fake. I didn't argue. I just shut my door and locked it. A car pulled up outside. From the small gap in my window blinds, I saw a tall man step out. I couldn't see his face, just his dark hoodie and the way he moved. Fast, tense, like he didn't want to be seen. Ethan met him at the door but didn't let him in. They spoke in hushed voices. Then the man handed Ethan something, a heavy-looking black bag. My stomach twisted. Ethan took the bag and looked around nervously before walking straight to the backyard and dumping it in our garbage bin. What the hell? The man left just as quickly as he came. The car sped off, tires screeching on the pavement. I stepped back from the window, my heart racing. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Was it drugs? Stolen goods? Something worse? I needed to know. Waited until Ethan was in the bathroom before creeping downstairs. The house was eerily quiet. Every floorboard creak sounded like a gunshot in the silence. I reached the back door and hesitated. If I got caught, what would Ethan do? I stepped outside. The garbage bin was right there. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside was the bag. I grabbed it. It was heavier than I expected. The fabric was thick like a duffel bag. I unzipped it just a little, just enough to see. My stomach dropped. Inside were several thick, neatly stacked bundles of cash. What the hell had I just found? Before I could process it, the bathroom door inside flushed. I panicked, shoving the bag back and lowering the lid as quietly as possible. I rushed inside, up the stairs, and into my room just as Ethan stepped out into the hall. He looked different. His usual nervous awkwardness was replaced with something else, something sharper. He scanned the living room, eyes darting toward the backyard door. His jaw clenched. I slid under my blanket, pretending to be asleep. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps heading toward the back door. I didn't sleep. I lay there, eyes open, waiting. An hour passed. Then another. At some point, I heard Ethan again, whispering. No, it's still here. He's asleep. Just come get. Had my stomach twisted into knots. Minutes later, headlights washed over my window. I slipped out of bed, heart hammering. The same car was back. The man from earlier stepped out, looking angrier this time. I could see his face now, rough skin, sharp eyes, the kind of face that belonged to someone who'd hurt people before. Ethan met him in the driveway. I watched from the stairs, hidden behind the railing. What the fuck, man? The man hissed. Ethan looked panicked. I told you I had to stash it. Stash it? You think this is a game? The man grabbed Ethan by the collar and shoved him against the door frame. I barely breathed. Ethan held his hands up defensively. Just wait. I'll get it. He ran to the backyard. I should have stayed put, but I didn't. I crept down the stairs, hiding just out of sight. The man stepped inside the house. Into my house. He was inside with me. I was frozen. I could hear him breathing. Ethan came back with the bag. Here, just take it. The man snatched it from him, unzipped. It checked inside. Then he looked back at Ethan. You're lucky. Then his eyes flicked toward the hallway. Toward me? A long, awful silence. I thought I was caught. Then the man smirked. You got a kid here, don't you? Ethan went rigid. The man took a slow step forward into the house, his shadow stretching long against the wall. What's your name, kid? I stayed dead silent. Ethan blocked his path. He doesn't know anything. His voice was low, desperate. The man stared at him. Then after what felt like forever, he chuckled. He turned away. "Let's go." He left. The car's engine roared to life, and just like that, he was gone. Ethan was pale. I didn't say a word as he turned, grabbed his keys, and left. No explanation. No goodnight, just gone. I sat there in the dark for hours, too scared to move. When Mom got home, I told her everything. This time she believed me. She tried calling Ethan, no answer. The next day she called his mom. "Oh, he wasn't feeling well," she said casually. "Came home early." We knew she was lying. Ethan never came back. We never saw him again. And even 10 years later, I still wonder, what was really in that bag? What was Ethan involved in? And if I had made a single sound that night, would that man have let me go?